minds of those involved, we are very grateful to share our officer is uninjured. Meanwhile, the suspect is in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. We will say we're also thankful that he will be okay and that there was no loss of life in this incident. Based on our preliminary investigation, this is what we believe unfolded. Around 1:30 a.m. this morning, an officer on our Northeast team was dispatched to the Office Depot at 333 North 50th Street for an alarm near the rear doors. And for your perspective, we do have a screenshot of the specific area that our officer was responding to reference that alarm. When he arrived, he located a man inside a small access door behind the dumpster near the back dock. He gave verbal commands to the suspect, but he did not comply. The suspect threw a metal object at the officer before firing at him, and our officer then returned fire. We do have a photo that we would like to show you. What we have circled here is the actual muzzle flash of the suspect as he is back in that area behind the dumpster. The time between the officer's arrival and shots fired was less than 90 seconds, so this all happened very quickly. A handgun was recovered at the scene in close proximity to where the suspect was ultimately taken into custody. Again, we do have two still photos from body-worn camera that we will show you. As you can see, the suspect is on the ground where we take him into custody, and in close proximity you see the object here that is the firearm, and then here is a close-up view of the firearm that the suspect had. The suspect has been identified as a 49-year-old Lincoln man. Once other officers arrived and determined it was safe to approach, they immediately rendered first aid on the scene. The suspect was then taken to the hospital where he underwent surgery for multiple non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. Once released, he'll be taken to the Lancaster County Jail for attempted murder, burglary, felon in possession of a firearm, and possible other charges as this investigation continues to unfold. The officer is on paid administrative leave, which is standard procedure for an officer-involved shooting. We will identify both the suspect and the officer at a later date. Again, the investigation is ongoing, and right now our crime scene investigators are working to gather and process evidence that will include review of body-worn camera footage, some of the stills that you saw today from that footage. Part of the investigation will include determining how many rounds were fired and by whom. We encourage anyone who may have additional information to please reach out to LPD at 402-441-6000. Or if you wish to remain anonymous, you are welcome to contact Crime Stoppers at 402-475-3600, as well as the ability to report online at lincolncrimestoppers.com or download the free P3 app. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Where was the suspect wounded at on his body?
Lower extremities. Yeah.
Was the officer running as he fired? I know previously we've been told officers are trained to shoot for the core of somebody, so I'm trying to gather why maybe the lower extremities were hit when the officer returned fire.
To clarify that statement, our officers are trained to stop a threat, and in this instance that is what occurred. We did stop the threat, and he went down, and we were able to safely take him into custody and render aid. This was an in motion. As you can imagine, the shot is fired and our officer has to position himself to safely and engage the suspect. And this continued for a few seconds, so there is motion. I just don't have the ability to further provide information on that this morning.
Was this the only officer that was there?
Yes. The additional officers arrived on scene immediately after and further assisted again securing that firearm that was still in close proximity of the suspect before we were able to get close enough to take him into custody to ensure that this threat incident was over, and then also to assist in rendering aid.
Did the suspect shot hit anything?
To my knowledge, no, but that is still part of the ongoing investigation. Of course, it was a darker area, and so our crime scene investigators are out on that scene, and they will be able to paint a better picture for us as it continues.
Why was the suspect wanted? Was the call out there
Correct. Yep, an alarm, we got an alarm, which always will initiate a response from two, generally, of our officers to go and check to see if entry was actually gained or if it was a false alarm in this case. This is why we train. He was prepared as he approached. He did actually find this suspect who was in an area that we believe is a garbage chute that leads out to that dumpster, but would also allow entry into the full business.
So he never gained entry into the business?
I don't have that information. I don't know that that's accurate based on, we just know where we contacted him. That does not mean that he hadn't already been in and out of the business. So again, that will be part of our ongoing investigation.
Can you confirm if LSO is leading the investigation into the shooting itself?
We are conducting this investigation. We have a joint team, and at times when we conduct these investigations, it's who is readily available to answer that call. We do have LSO assisting on the crime scene. So there's two components of this investigation that operate concurrently. The investigators that are conducting interviews, and then our crime scene techs collecting evidence, and we do have LSO assisting as a part of that scene, and we're very grateful for that continued partnership.
Do you guys know what the metal object was that was thrown towards the officer?
I would only be making an assumption of what I think. That's a little bit harder to picture off of the body-worn camera, and since I did not respond to the scene, I'm gonna withhold my assumption.
Can you, I think you mentioned that the subject was shot in the lower extremities.
Yes.
Can you identify how many times he was shot? You said multiple, but do you know how many?
He immediately, when he arrived at the hospital, went into surgery. So I would want to confirm once he is out of surgery and stable what that number is. That's something that we can release as, again, when we have the full picture of this investigation.
Is it standard for LPD to investigate their own officer-involved shooting?
Here's what I'll tell you. Again, we have a joint team that consists of LPD and LSO officers, and at times we also have a partnership with the Nebraska State Patrol. Anytime we have an incident like this, a lot of eyes get to review it. And so we feel very confident that through these investigations, whether we're lead or we have LSO leading and we're on the team, that we are doing very thorough, detailed investigations, so we have a logical conclusion that we can share.
Did the officer go for a full round of bullets?
I don't have that information.
Did you say it was unpaid or paid?
It's paid. That is part of our standard policy when we have an officer who's involved in an officer-involved shooting or critical incident. We put them out on paid administrative leave. That's an important component for us as we continue the investigation. And moreover, we always want to ensure that we provide the proper supports to them during that time. Again, we're extremely grateful that he was uninjured, and we were very happy to send him home this morning to his family, where we hope that he's getting some rest as we continue this investigation.
What was the caliber of the handgun? Or can you release that?
Yeah, I don't actually have that information yet.
Will you guys be releasing body-worn footage at some point?
It is likely that I won't release body-worn camera footage. I did, again, want to take stills to share with you today. I think that helps paint the picture of what happened. But due to the fact that this will result in an arrest, and that becomes part of our ongoing investigation and then further prosecution, we generally don't like to release the entire video.
And do you know if the office people will remain closed for today or?
That's a great question. I don't know that. I don't have that information. I know they were supposed to open at 9 a.m. I suspect that they're not fully open at this time.
Any
Okay.
other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks for being here this morning.
Conference regarding an update on an officer-involved shooting that happened overnight near the Office Depot near 48th and R Streets. 10:11 this morning. Anchor Craig Allison joining me now as we kind of recap what LPD talked about. You guys have been covering us, following this all morning. Tell us a little bit here.
Yeah, Danielle, just going over the timeline here. I mean, this happened just after 1:30 a.m. That's also when we started to first hear those reports. Our overnight producer and reporter Ryan Tillich then headed out, got some of that nighttime video that you saw there, and that was just an angle from the front of the store over there at R and 50th. And so there was a heavy police presence kind of just around that perimeter. It wasn't until this morning, though, when we got to see that clearer picture that you showed earlier. I was over there at the crime scene where you could see a lot of the tape, a lot of the numbers. But once we started coming in for the day, Megan Conway then reached out to duty command around, I want to say 4:30 a.m. And then we got that update about this being an officer-involved shooting just right after 10:11 this morning, wrapped up at 7 a.m. And so that's kind of where we were in the processing. But yeah, just over at that scene, they talked about rounds being fired, and you could see about more than a handful of numbers there, but there was over a dozen of those crime numbers just placed around the scene, both green and red. They mentioned that backdoor entrance, and that's where a lot of attention was being focused with officers. So, I mean, that lines up exactly with what they were talking about. And yeah, just recapping what just occurred at that press conference, they just talked about the alarm going off at that rear door. That's where they then found the suspect just crouched over there, the bar being thrown, shots being fired, returning fire, and then that handgun being recovered. So that kind of leads to where we're at right now. So still a lot of questions to be answered, but yeah, that's just right there, a live look, not a live look, look from this morning when we just went there. Still very active.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the video that we showed earlier during the press conference, I can pull that up again a little bit at 1:30 or so, maybe 2 a.m. when our producer had went out there to go catch some scene video, see what was kind of going on out there. And there we go. So alarm was set off. Officers went out to go check it out over here at this Office Depot and found the suspect, who they have only identified as a 49-year-old Lincoln man, behind a dumpster. They said that he wasn't complying, threw a metal object at the officer before the officer then fired. Now, Michonne Morrow said all of this transpired in about 90 seconds, so it was really quick. She says that the officer is okay on paid leave, and the suspect had surgery for non-life-threatening gunshot wounds, I think one to the lower extremity for sure, but we did not get an answer on how many times the officer did fire. That's still under investigation, but a handgun has been recovered. They also said that the 49-year-old man will likely be charged with attempted murder, among other charges. Not sure. They're also not sure if the Office Depot is open at this point. But given what has transpired here today in an active crime scene, I'm sure Office Depot on, let's see, it was 48th and...
Yeah, just around 48th and R, 50th and R, just in that section there. So definitely want to avoid the area. LSO, I also spotted one of their cars just by the, I believe it's the Hilton right there next to it. It kind of overlooks that back lot of the Office Depot. So I imagine they might be asking about security footage. It's still very active. And like Sean Morrow said this morning, it's a combined investigation. So I saw more than a handful of both LPD and LSO cars still there, moving in and out. They even had a drone over the scene as well, so it's still pretty active around there. I'd say the best guess you might want to, if you need office supplies or...
yeah, go somewhere else.
please go somewhere else.
So yeah, you were out this morning gathering this video. Let's talk about bullet points from what we've learned today. What's some major 5 things that viewers can take away from this incident?
I mean, it's just right there. It's a lot of evidence to process, a lot of tape, a lot of numbers on the scene there. So I imagine they'll be processing it for a while. I think that's just the thing, at least visually, that stuck out to me there. Second thing is that of the suspect going to the hospital with multiple gunshot wounds and then the officer who was involved, both seem, from what we heard this morning, are going to be fine. So that's good, taking that away.
Yeah.
And then, just that backdoor entrance seems to be a key part of the narrative. I mean, with where the alarm went off, as well as where they found the person, and then just that's where a lot of the attention was focused. Multiple people walking behind that dumpster they mentioned and taking even more photos after the fact when I was there on scene just this morning. So it seems like a lot of attention is going to be going there. And then I know
Yeah.
it's early for our viewers. It's later for me in the day. I don't know how many points that is, like 3 or 4, but I think those are the biggest points.
Yeah. So again, the suspect is in the hospital right now with some non-life-threatening injuries, underwent surgery, will likely be charged with attempted murder. So once he's discharged from the hospital, he'll go straight to jail. Officer is okay, no injuries there. He is on, I think they said he, she, I don't think
Yeah.
we know for sure, is on paid administrative leave. This all transpired from an alarm over at Office Depot near 48th and R Streets, and a handgun was recovered. And then maybe 5 is that the crime scene investigators are still gathering evidence, and there's everything remains ongoing at this point.
Yep, a lot of questions to be answered. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and we will keep you guys updated on this story as new information does become available. So stick with 1011 Now on air, online, and across our social platforms. From our newsroom to wherever you are, we'll see you on the next stream.